I'm going to let you guys work on problem 2 on your own, and we're going to move on to problem 3. Now, this hint over here gives us the evolution of this part. So we're going to start with this ring, then we're going to add the tab that's here, and then we're going to add the last feature in the bottom, which is this bottom plate that has several holes in the bottom. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and go to CREO and create a new part. You can call it part 3 or problem 3. Click OK. I'm going to create an extrusion. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn on all my displays. So go to your graphics toolbar, make sure that your plain display and all the displays are available to you. So go ahead and click extrude. And we're going to start with the top plane once again. Go ahead and go to sketch view. And let's begin by placing a circle, just as is, center and point, right here in the middle. And I'm going to place another circle. That way I can generate my ring. Now what I want to do is I want to modify my dimensions of these circles. So I can hit escape, that way I can exit the sketch feature. And then I can modify by clicking my modify button. You're going to get your dialog box. And so the inside diameter, and I'm going to uncheck my regenerate, and the inside diameter is going to be 2.5 and the outside is going to be 3. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to OK my sketch. Now what I want to do is I want to give it a depth, right, so that I don't get this enormous cylinder. So what I want to do is I want to give it a depth of 0.5. So once I have my extrusion, I'm going to click OK. Go ahead and click standard view or standard orientation, and you have your first part done. What I want to do now is create this base here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another extrusion, and then I'm going to reference that extrusion to my circle, which is why they ask you to use this option, which is your reference with respect to the different datum planes or whatever feature you're doing. So let's go ahead and create an extrusion. Once again, I'm going to hit the top plane. Go ahead and go to sketch view. And then I'm going to minimize this a little so that I can add my rectangle. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and click my references. I want to be able to reference this feature to my circle, my outside circle to be specific. So notice how that turns green and you have your surface there. So I'm going to click close, and then I'm going to start my rectangle. So I'm going to reference it at this point, and then I'm going to give it some length down here in the bottom. Now that I've done that, I'm going to escape and then edit the dimensions that I have. I'm going to go ahead and double click on this and give this a dimension of 1 inch, and then give this a length of 4. I'm going to OK my sketch, and once again I'm going to give the same depth as I did to this circle, so that's going to be 0.5. Once I've done that, I'm going to click check on my extrude or click OK. Now I'm halfway through this model. Okay, go ahead and click Standard Orientation. And what we want to do now is create this bottom feature and this block in the bottom. So what I want to do now is, instead of creating an extrusion on a plane like before, I'm going to reference this extrusion to a surface. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to Sketch View. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my references once again. I'm going to click all of the edges of this bottom rod as a reference. I'm going to click Close, and then I'm going to create a rectangle as my base here. I'm going to hit Escape, and then what I want to do is I want to edit the dimensions of this rectangle. This is a 2 by 1. And then I'm going to change the reference dimensions. So this is going to be 0.5, and that centers my rectangle in the horizontal direction, and then this is going to be 0.25, and that centers my rectangle in the vertical direction. So now that I've done this, what I need to do is I need to create my 4 holes here. So I'm going to create some circles, and I'm going to have a hole here, and then another hole lined up. I'm going to click R. Notice how the R line up. That means that the radius are equal to each other, and I do want that to happen. Then I'm going to hit Escape, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the dimensions of each of these. I'm going to stretch this a little. My rectangle, but my dimensions so I can see where they're at. So according to our diagram, each of these is 0.125, and they're 0.125 away from the edge. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this to 0.125, and then I'm going to change this to 0.125. The same here, 0.125, and then the last one's up here, 0.125. Now I also want this to be 0.125 from the top. So if I do a little math, and you recall that this is 0.25, that needs to be 1, right? Then I know that minus 0.125 ends up giving me 0.125. So now I've centered each of my small little circles, and I'm going to click OK at my sketch, and then I'm going to give my sketch some depth. In this case, I want the depth to be 0.5, but I want to make sure that the depth is oriented in the right direction, because I don't want it to go into my previous parts. I want it to be out. So make sure that the direction is oriented properly, and if it is, then go